All right, let's crack on. So thanks very much for joining. What I'd like to do today, and I think that's the email that I sent you guys, is to give you an update on what happened since your onboarding. And because you guys were in various stage of the system, I had a look at the list of attendees, and based on that, I've prepared for this session so that I don't bore you with things that you already know, like the product proposition and the maturity model building. So I'll focus more on the things that can help your life, but you haven't seen it on the onboarding, or things that you've seen in the onboarding, but I can give you a different angle so that you can consider using that in your everyday life. If that makes sense. The agenda will be that I will just quickly show you the starting point in the system that I've built. I've built a proposition and maturity model, a lead magnet with a report, and some group templates. These are all things you guys know inside out how to build, so I will just quickly show you that. The topic that I've picked is ITSM for two reasons. First of them, some of the attendees actually are working in the ITSM space, so for them the topic would have been familiar. But the other thing is that that gives me a nice topic that has a lot of details, a lot of levels and all that stuff. So that gives me a model that can be broken into dimensions and categories, while it gives me the chance to also talk about the high level categories and all this. So that will showcase really well what I'm about to show you guys. Okay, then probably, yeah, one of you have seen, the other one hasn't. I will just quickly build the quadrant map and add it to a document and the lead magnet, which is a nice new addition to our system for a while now. That helps to represent the results in a slightly different way. And then I will actually ask one of you to fill out the lead magnet so that I get a submission into the system that I can start working on. And what I will do with that is to configure quickly the submission and opportunity Kanban board, so the processes, to something that I've just scribbled yesterday, to have a process that works with our purpose today. And then I'll go through the submission that one of you will submit, and then turn it into an opportunity. And then with that opportunity, I will start some assessments. And again, I will ask your participation in that. I will start 3 assessments within the ITSM space, and I will ask you guys to go through that. I show you how I created from the templates, and then the end result would be that I've put them all into a discovery project, which is practically the newest edition of our system, to show you how you can combine various things, which I think is quite a powerful tool for your maturity assessment, because what this now enables us is to be able to really fix a baseline for any future work. So it's not just you have an assessment here, but you can combine multiple angles, multiple assessments into one coherent view about the whole organization's, in this case, ITSM activities. And then based on that, you can start building up the actual proposition of what would need to change and how you would want to change. And assuming I will have still a couple of minutes, I will also talk about what's coming next. So I already have prepped the test system to show you guys a couple of things that is boiling. So we'll come in a week or two. And if I still have time, I'll also talk about how we build on the discovery project to actually become a continuous engagement model in our system. So that's the plan. Okay. We have Q&As, so feel free to drop questions in there. Rob, if you don't mind just having a look at the Q&As and answer questions, but also feel free to raise it if you want to talk about it on the meeting, because this can be an interactive session, absolutely. Right. So the first step is just to quickly build a quadrant map and add it to the lead magnet. So the product book that I've created, as I mentioned, is about ITSM. I've created a product proposition for organization with 50 to 200 employees require robust IT service management. Okay, so this is a very typical one. I didn't spend too much time actually building the model and proposition. I relied heavily on AI to give me the knowledge of what ITSM will be. And based on that, I've built a maturity model that has 7 categories. And within the 7 categories, I have 2 dimensions each, right? So that's practically the framework we will use today. Okay. And with that, I've built, as I mentioned, the lead magnet. So are you ready to ITSM? And also I've built a document template that is practically the end result of the ITSM. And while I will show you guys a bit more, I will ask Rob I will ask Rechi actually. If you don't mind, Rechi, can you just fill out this assessment, I'll give you the link so that we actually get a submission. I've just added the link to the chat, okay, so that we have an actual submission. Right, yeah. So, so as I mentioned, the first step will be to add this quadrant view, which is located in the Maps tab now. So at the moment, I don't have any. I can create a map manually, or I can use AI to come up with a suggestion. I'll use the AI one because my experience is that it's pretty cool. So it will practically build me a map or a quadrant view. The quadrant view is where you can practically place the scores into a 4-box map kind of stuff, rather than the radar graph that would just show you the category scores. And what you see here is that my 7 categories are grouped into 2 based on the AI knowledge of what the item is about. And then it says the axis is the process and service maturity, and the y-axis is the organization and improvement capability, which sounds like pretty cool. What you can see is that you don't need to use all the 7 categories from your model in this one. So if you think one of them is not relevant for this quadrant representation, feel free to skip it. And you can also use average or weighted calculation for the score on the axis from the category scores that we get from the system. Right, and you can also see that the 4 boxes are custom named, custom colored, and you can add some descriptions that will later be used with the analysis and feedbacking of the actual assessments. For me, it looks quite okay, as good as anything else, because as I mentioned, I'm not an expert. So I'd love to use this for various other purposes, and hence I won't spend time to actually verify the knowledge. But you could anytime just shuffle around the categories, put one category in the other, or actually, as I mentioned, you can build it from scratch if you want it. The only key thing is that you want to activate it, because as usual, unless it's activated, it can't be used for other purposes. So it behaves similar to the maturity model where you do this. Okay, and as I also promised, I will show you a quick way to add that to the lead magnet and the report. I'll start with the report because it's quite an interesting thing. You can add that to the report, but not as a replacement of the category scores if you want to. So you can still have the category scores in the report, but you actually add the additional section, the 4-box map that I've just created. Okay, and what it will give us is an additional section, obviously. Okay, if I go there, it's just generating the content. And in that section, similar to what we had with the overall score and the category scores, now you have 4 variations that you can customize for your reporting purposes, because obviously the 4 quadrant will represent the 4 places that you can have with the assessment. And you can see for each of them, you have a different wording that AI generated, but you can customize as always. Right. So yeah, this is how it works. And if I now say, yep, that's added to the report, I will just add that to the assessment. So if you go, for example, to your lead magnet, what you can do here in the automation section, and I won't pretend I'm doing a training from scratch, so you guys know where I'm doing and what I'm clicking, but feel free to stop me if you want to elaborate on something, or feel free to just put a question in the Q&A and Rob will explain you more how you can do this. So now in the summary graph, you have the 4-box map as an option. And if you select the 4-box map, you can also select which map you would like to use from the list of maps available for this assessment. And now the end result will be that if I do this and then I quickly do another assessment, okay, then going through the questions, which will be quite fast, hopefully. Yep. Okay, I just added some basic design to the assessment so that it is actually digestible. Okay. Okay, some test data, as you are now experienced with me. I've selected a variety of multiple choice and rating type questions. Probably you haven't seen the rating before. That's also a kind of new addition where you can have a statement and you can ask the assessor to evaluate the statement on a scale of 1 to something, and you can configure the question. So how many levels you have in the question, and you can add some labels to it. So yeah, that's also something that you haven't probably seen in the system. Okay, I'm almost at the end. last question. So now on the left side, as we expect, the quadrant 2 will be presented instead of the radar chart. So that's something you can control. There you go. And now it shows me where I am. And it also gives me the explanation of my box position. So what does that mean rather than the category scores? But still in my report, if I now open the report that's been generated, we've added the 4-box view. So now I will have both the 4-box view and the, yep, there you go. So we have the category scores, and then you have the 4-box view as well to explain it. So that can be added to the report quite easily. Right. One thing probably, I think David already knows it because we had an email conversation yesterday. We've implemented this quite handy feature here to hide the navigation bar. And the main reason for that is that this way, if you use the browser inbuilt export to PDF function, it will actually print it in the nice PDF document. So with that removing, practically the PDF was exported with the navigation bar in, so half of the page was about the navigation bar always. But now you will have a much better output for PDFs if you're interested to export it rather than just share the web. Okay, let me try to move this somewhere that it doesn't bother me. All right, so that's the first step that I wanted to show you guys today. Okay. Yeah, so build a quadrant map and add it to the lead magnet. Now the next one is configure submissions and opportunities. That's again something that we've added like 2 months ago, but I'm not sure everyone or many people are using this. So I just wanted to go back a bit to show you guys how easy it is to configure the quadrant. How easy it is to configure the Kanban boards to your liking, because what we want to build is not only an assessment tool, it's not only a maturity model assessment or a consultancy tool to actually engage with the clients, but we also want to add a CRM aspect of it where you can manage your own leads, your own submissions, and your own opportunities in our system, and also you can manage your clients. So what I've done as a preparation for today, if I go back, is that I've already configured my client journey. So when you create an organization in my system, at least, you have the back burner prospect, X-rated prospect, live client, and at-risk client instead of the default processes that we have. And I want to do the same with submissions and opportunities today, so that to show you how easy it is to change the Kanban board for that. So I've practically created 2 processes that I want to implement in my system. For a submission, I want to have the new submission, awaiting review, under review, qualified, and then not interested and turn to opportunity. So let's quickly build this into our system. So I go to the submissions menu point. Yeah, and then I have the incomplete, which will always be there. So that's for assessments that weren't fully completed. Okay, we have the new as a starting point. That's good. We have the awaiting review. I think we're pretty good. Awaiting review. What I will do with the awaiting review is that I will just add here a description that not dropped. Okay, and what this means is that whenever I hover over, I can actually see the description. So why? Yep. So you can add some more descriptions to a column for people using the Kanban board, but not part of the design team. Then the next one will be under review. Okay, so that's just a slight naming change. No, actually, that's good. Okay, and then we need to, instead of the qualified, we will have a qualified and then a turned into opportunity. We're quite close to qualified, but I will remove this ready to contact thing because I don't need this. And then the last, yeah, we don't need the nurture one, so that's something I'll get rid of. And then the disqualified, I'll rename it to be, okay, it's not interested, right? And the last one will be turned into opportunity, which is something similar that we already have. Yeah, converted to opportunity. So I'm happy to live with that. Okay, so now I customize my own process, and the reason for that is that this is Rash's submission that he kindly did for me, and that's actually mine. But we will use this going forward to go through this process. But before that, I will also do a quick tweaking on the opportunities board as well, because this is the to-contact, in-contact discovery solution design proposal. I'd like to change it to be discovery negotiation proposal issued and then won and lost. So that's how I will transform mine. So, sorry, discovery. Yeah, so we don't need the in contact. And this way I can show you that if you try to delete something that already have some entities in here, you have a migration tool. So you can say where to move it to. Okay. So we have the discovery. We don't need the to contact. So that will be moved to discovery as well. Great. And now the discovery is the default status because the to contact was the default one. So it's just a gentle reminder. If you delete the default status, then the next status in the process will inherit the default. And the default status means that whenever the system creates an opportunity out of a submission, for example, through the create opportunity function, or you just create the opportunity on this board, then it will always go into the default status. Right. So it's just a reminder. That's why the default is important. Okay, so we have now the discovery, we have negotiation, which is the solution design. Okay, so yeah, let's change this. So this will be, and the description will. Okay. And then the next step will be proposal issued. Yep, proposal issued. Okay, and then I will add two more statuses. One, which let's give it a green thing because that's, and the text color should be white. Okay. And then we will also have lost, which let's give it a red and white. Okay. So now you have these opportunities. Okay. At the moment, everything is in the discovery. And let me just move John's opportunity into proposal issued so that I can also just highlight you that we have a pre-sales dashboard that works on the opportunities. So if you have opportunities with values and all that stuff, then the pre-sales dashboard actually shows you your pipeline. So it shows you submissions, how many were generated in the last couple of days, and where are you with them. And it also shows you the pre-sales opportunity pipeline. So how many opportunities you have in various stages. And assuming I have some values added to the opportunity, which we will do today, then you will also see your pipeline value in various stages. So it's just to highlight that you have the dashboard if you want to use our system for CRM. Okay, so now that we've configured the submission opportunities, now let's manage the submission to discovery opportunity. So now that Rachi created that submission, so let me just quickly open it. The first thing I will do with that is I will, okay, so, right, so it is in new status at the moment. So what I can do with that is point one, I can ask AI to give us further analysis. AI doesn't by default create the additional analysis because sometimes you want just data collection or other reasons for a submission. So you can ask the AI to give you further details based on your model, based on the answers from the submission itself. So I'll just trigger the analysis creation. And what it also gives you is a bit more meat so that you can go back to the client with more understanding about it. But yeah, it practically reads through all the answers that's being provided through the assessment. And based on that, it comes up with recommended next steps and more detailed discussion about what this means. As I'm sure you know, you can go through the answers, you can take notes, and notes are pretty important if you have a process, if you have a CRM process behind us, because now what I can do is that based on the analysis, I can actually take a note to say, okay, talking point, and I can mention that strange that core ITSM processes are defined, but still they are insignificant risk of not having a system in place. Okay, I'm just adding a note, but these notes are collected by the system. So what you can do is that I say, yep, this is worth analyzing it. So let's go for under review. And then in the under review section, many people can look at the submission, give their thoughts through the notes. And then when we get to a point where we actually discuss with the client the results or anything, you have all the notes and knowledge next to the assessment. So it's an easy way to look through all the additional details you've collected. And also you can have a look at the report that's been generated. Okay, so yeah, now this submission is on its way. It is under review, and then we can, after the review, we can say it's qualified or it's disqualified, obviously. And then whenever you feel like you're ready, because you've already talked to the client, you can change it, you can turn this into an opportunity. Before to do that, just to mention that you can always go to the contact. Okay, and if you go to the contract record, then you can always add more details to the person, like their job description or position or anything. Apologies, sometimes the loading will take a bit of time because Teams eats up the internet network. But what you also have here is a timeline segment where you can see what happened with this contact. And for example, in the qualified stage, you can say, I had the call or a meeting with this guy because we had a face-to-face or a online meeting or a call with the guy, and you can add transcription and all that stuff, which we will do later. So I'm just highlighting here that while you're working with the submission through the contact, you can already start adding more information about your contact. At the moment, you might not have an organization behind the contact, but if, for example, you have an organization behind the contact, so you know the organization this guy works for, then the whole organization record can be created at this stage if you want to do that, but we will just do it very quickly. Okay, so yeah, with this submission, I just go back to the submission record itself. At one point, we discussed with the guy it's worth chasing, so let's create an opportunity around the submission. And then in this opportunity, what you can say, this is this discovery for ITSM. Okay, the contact is Rachi, and what we already know that because Rachi was already registered for an organization, the system already knows the organization behind Rachi, and we will see that now the organization record is automatically building. Right, the opportunity value, let's say it's 5,000 GBP, and we can add additional notes. But what now we do is to convert this into an opportunity, and the opportunity record is much richer than the assessment, the submission itself or the contact record. It has its own timeline. You can upload files supporting it, and the opportunity record will over time become the proposal generation tool. So this is where you collect all the information, and then with that information about the organization and the opportunity itself, you will be able to export a proposal that works through the product book and everything. That's something that will come later on our roadmap. It's suggested for July, as far as I remember. Okay, so you know the opportunity record, so I won't spend a lot of details in here. But practically, now what we have is Rachi's opportunity on our board, which is at the moment, yep, it's looking here. And now if I look at the dashboard, I can see in my pipeline that in the discovery, a 5,000 record just appeared. Okay, because now this opportunity is managed through the system. And what I will do now is I will say that we're in discovery, and actually what we've agreed with the guys is do a solution design. And the way we've discussed it with the guys is that we had a call with Rachi. Okay, so I will add the call that we had. Okay, so discuss next steps. All right, we lost David for a second, I guess. Right, so we had the call. The call was between me and Rachi. Okay, so Rachi, yep, and what I will also do is to add my transcript that I have from the call. I've just prepared it before the meeting, so I'll just copy paste the transcript meeting, and then I will ask AI to process it. And based on that, AI will come up with a summary of what happened on the call, but it will also suggest a couple of tasks for us. And this is where I would like to highlight another feature that we've added to the system, and that's practically the task management and the workbench. So now I will create this. So now you can see that in this timeline for this opportunity, now I had this call to discuss the next steps, and based on that, I need to schedule the assessments and need to share the agenda outline. Okay. So yeah, that I can say that actually this task is not relevant, or I can cancel the task or anything, but this is what I will work on, because this means that now we want to start running assessments with the client. Okay, and the way I can see these tasks and important items is through the opportunity timeline, or actually I can see through the organization timeline. So if I go to the organization responsible for this opportunity, I'll just navigate there. Then you can also see on the organization timeline it appearing. Okay, so now you can see that that's been added, but the client status was here too early to talk. Okay, so I guess based on that, we can change now the status of this organization to accelerated project. Okay, that's great. That's where we are. And if I check my workbench now, I can also see the task appearing. I can see the new submissions, and I can see the opportunities that would have been assigned to me. So that clearly highlights that the opportunity wasn't assigned to me. So let me just quickly assign it to me so that it appears on my workbench. The main contact is Rechi. And what else do we need to do? Yep, so we can see the assessment based on that this opportunity was created. Yep, that one-to-one assessment with Rechi. And now if I look at my workbench again, I can see that this opportunity is for me to manage. So if I'm just working from my workbench, I can see what I need to do. I have 2 tasks to do: discuss next step and preparation call for the second workshop. So yeah, that workbench gives me my daily agenda of what I need to do in the system if I decide to use our own CRM. Okay, so we practically managed the submission to discovery opportunity. And then what I've done, and it's just retrospective, sorry, is that I sent the invite to Rechi for the lead. I moved the submission to convert opportunity, created the opportunity, have a call to arrange the assessments, and pick up the task on the workbench. So that's practically what we did. And now what I will do is to start setting up assessments, right? So if I have a look at this organization that I'm using here, this webinar crew, okay, I created it for today's purpose. So I've added all the contacts that were meant to be here, minus Rob, who's already in another organization, so I couldn't add him to this one. Okay, so this organization was created for the purpose of this, and it sits in the accelerated prospect column. The reason why I have this accelerated prospect column in my process is that if, for example, there's a client that is really willing to push forward, rather than going into prospect and start the discussion, we can really know that this guy is an important one. So yeah, let's work with the guy. And what we will do now is we will send assessments, because the next step would be, and that's what I discussed with Rachi on the call, the next step is to actually start doing a deep dive discovery assessments, right? And what we've agreed with Rachi is that practically we will run 3 assessments. We will run one for the management. That is a high-level overview of what's happening. And then we will do deep dives with parts of the agenda, because what we've agreed with Rechi on the call is that some areas are covered by some people, while other areas are covered by other people. So we need to be able to just send out assessment that is talking about part of the model, but with a deep dive concept. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do today, and that will show us the power of the discovery project at the end of this call, hopefully. Right, but let's start with the management one. As I told you, I've already created some templates. So I will use the management template, which I will assign it to, so who's the main contact, the stakeholder. Steve, you will be the main contact. I will be the one working with us on this one. Okay, and then we will jump into the question configuration to verify if we need to add any question, but practically that's what we will have in this assessment. It's also a nice addition that you can see here that now you can mix and match questions. So what I've added as an instruction to the assessment creation when I created the assessment is that I want in each category, I want a linear, an open-ended, and rating type questions. And that's what practically AI generated for me. So if I go through every category, I'll see the same structure because that's how I instructed AI to generate me questions. So that's what we will do. I've configured all these things in my template, so it should be a safe run here. Okay, and I also added this quick report to that. Okay, and the assessment is created. So that, Steve, I will just send you the invite so that you can actually fill this out for me, if you don't mind. Right, but yeah, wait for that for now, because you will have time to do that. But now I created an assessment that is running actually. So based on the template, it was as easy to set up a template. But as I mentioned, I also want to have an assessment that covers on the first three categories: service focus at category 1 to 3, and then another one, governance focus, on that focuses on category 4 and 6. Right, David, thanks for joining back. This is where I think it would be really interesting for you. So just a quick recap. What we're doing now is that we've moved into a discovery phase with the client. We've agreed they want to explore further where they are. And so we are creating 3 assessments for them, 3 group assessment, one focusing on the management view on all the areas, while the other one will focus on specific categories within the model, because different people are working on different areas. So we want to give them the chance to only give opinion on areas that they're familiar with. We've set up the management assessment, and now we will set up the other 2 based on one of the templates that I've created. Okay, so now I will create another one. I have this other one, which is called employee assessment. What the employee assessment does is that it gives me, this time David will be the main contact and I will be the consultant. It gives me a set of questions for all categories and dimensions, right? So you can see that I have 3 questions for every dimension within the certain category. But what we've discussed here is that the first assessment I want to set up will only need category 1 to 3. Okay, so what I will do now is I will drop the other categories from this template, and this is how I will create my assessment, because I don't need them for this specific. So while the template will still be intact and I can use it later for other purposes, because I've spent some work curating the questions. For this assessment, I only need this first 3 categories, right? So I will now go forward with these questions only. Okay. The rest is pre-configured, so we're good to go. Okay, and this one I will send to David. I will send the invite to David. And then, as we discussed, I'll set up a third assessment, which will be governance related. So it focuses on category 4 and 6 only. So I use the same employee assessment. This time the main contact will be Rachi. I will still be the consultant because I'm doing all the work in my organization. And so now what we need is category 4 and 6. So I will delete the first 3. I keep the supplier governance. I don't need the performance and visibility reporting. And I don't need the people skills in this assessment. Okay, I'll just update the assessment to make sure that we have all the questions and publish it. So because I've already had my product, and this is where we always talk about scalability. So once you build your model, once you build your templates, it's really easy to start doing assessments for clients because it's all now managed by AI. And this time, Rachi, you will be the lucky one to receive the invite. Okay, so now the 3 assessments are out. Okay, which means that in theory, if I had more people being able to do the assessments, practically I would ask 20 people to fill out the first detailed one, 15 the other detailed one, and then the 5 managers from the company to fill out the management ones. But can I ask you guys just to quickly check the invite and based on that fill out the assessment, you 3, so that I have some results in for the group assessment, and then we will move to the discovery assessment as the last one. Steve, you're typing something, feel free to say. Okay, Rachi and Steve are done. Yay. Okay, David, if you can also. Okay, actually, let's jump into it so that we see. Okay, so in the organizations, I have the webinar crew, the assessment. Okay, so let's see what happened to the management one. Okay, so we have one that's new, and because that will be the only one we can expect today, I will close the assessment. Oh, no, I won't for now. I just want to show you something before doing that. So let's see what we have. The management, and yeah, I should have renamed it to governance and all this bit. So this one is about, that's Rachi. So that was about governance, assessment, just to give something more meaningful. And then this one is about, what was this service? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah. So far, David, I'll wait for you to fill it out, and then I will just move forward so that you can also watch what I'm doing.
Yeah, Zoltan is a bit more involved this set of questions, so I'm just trying to answer them quickly.
Okay. Assessment is loading. All right, David, that's fine. While the assessment is loading, David, just hold for a second. Let me start explaining the discovery project, because I think this is a perfect moment to introduce it, and then we will get your results, and then we will work with them. Right. So the latest addition that came to the system, I think 2 weeks ago, is the discovery project. As I mentioned, the discovery project is something that you can use to actually set a baseline for a client, and based on that, start the engagement like this is where you are today. And what it gives us today is the chance to combine multiple assessment results into one coherent view. And what we want to do with this one going forward, and now we're talking about the future, is you will also be able to, based on this baseline that you fix with the client, be able to talk about, okay, where do you need to go next? What do you need to do? What are the key areas we've identified through the assessment that needs improvement? How can you actually do that? So what are the proposed actions? What is the plan to execute those actions? So the discovery project really will become a tool where you can define the consultancy project you want to create with the client. That's why we call it discovery project. And then what this will build into through our program record, which will come second half, so probably somewhere around August, the program record will enable you to use this discovery project to actually build a continuous engagement where you can then do a recap 3 months later, you can do a reassessment, you can compare the results, you can amend the action plan and go forward with the next and next and next version. And I will also show you at the end of today how the client portal will support all that stuff, because that's already happening soon.
Just to clarify, Zoltan, on the the scenario we're playing with here, I'm assuming here, with the particular one we're playing with is they've agreed, they've paid for the project, we're running the discovery now, we're reaching out to different stakeholder groups, and we're gathering that information just to, fill out the picture, if you like. It
can be that. So it's up to the consultants if at this moment it's a paced exercise or it's still free because it's part of the proposal.
We're just demonstrating. I get that, but I'm just trying to relate it for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I create the discovery project for this webinar crew. Okay, and I will use the ITSM product book for that. So let me just find it. And the latest version. Okay. So now this discovery project has a lot of details so that you can fill out. So who's the executive sponsor? In this case, it will be Rachi. Who's the main client contact, which might be different. So we can map out who's the sponsor and who's the main contact. It will be Steve at this moment. I will be the one who's assigned as a lead. We can discuss the start date and an end date. So it starts today and it ends tomorrow because it's an accelerated client, right? And the status, which we have a Kanban board as well. So we can configure the status of the project as well. And we can start explaining what's the engagement summary and what's the working agreement. So we've added a lot of information for you guys to be able to manage, but we will always want to listen to your feedback on what else do we need to add or what you need to do here. We have a file section. So along the discovery, you've probably received a lot of information from client, brochures, explanations, policy documents, and all that stuff. You can upload it here so that you have everything in one place. You have a timeline function that you're now used to. So when the discovery project was created, the sponsors, when we start working the assessments, the timeline will get more and more. But you can also have the typical ones like a meeting or a call recorded here that talks about, okay, so what did we do with the discovery project results and everything else. But the key thing that I want to showcase today is the assessments part. So this is where you can actually start to bundle assessments together. And the way you can do that is either you select running assessments from what you've started with the organization, or actually you could create new assessments directly into this one. So another way to do the exercise that we've done. Okay. Rob, can you just have a look at David's questions in the chat? Sorry about that. I just want to finish this part, but yeah, David has a question about the assessment. So you can either create the assessments directly to the project, or actually you can create it for the organization and then link it to the project, whichever way we want to do. It might be that you do an assessment and later you decide with the client, you do a discovery assessment, bundling a couple of assessments, hence you have both options here to link or to create it directly here. I will link all three here. So I will start with the management one. Okay, and I will add the other two as well. Service, and then link the governance one. Okay, so now I have the project board with the analysis. What you can see here is that it tells you how many assessments were added, what's the coverage. The coverage practically tells you if the full model was covered by the assessments you've linked to this to the project. It might be that, for example, if I only link the governance and the service, then it would say something like 67 or something. No, probably 3 out of 5. So it's a 60% coverage, because you would have 2 categories out of the 7 not covered. But because I have the management that covers all the categories, I have the full coverage here, but that's what it just hints me. And now if I go to the analysis, this is where it becomes really interesting. So you want to come up with combined scores, right, out of the 3 assessments. And what you can do in this place is to actually start weighing them. So you can probably say that the management has a more important view, or actually less, because they're not included in the everyday activities. So you can probably say that the management will have a weight of 2, while the service assessment and the governance assessment guys will have a weight of 3, because you want to give a bit more leverage to the on-the-floor guys rather than the management. But obviously there were 2 categories that were scanned by the management only. So for them, the only score that will influence the final score will come from the management, right? So you can play the VX scores, and then you can do that on the categories or the dimension level, because our model has some dimensions. Okay. And then you can see that, for example, the management assessment wasn't going down on the dimension level, so they don't have dimension scores, and as such, the other 2 assessment will participate in the score of those dimensions only, right? And then what you can also do, because now we still are in an active stage with all 3 groups, is that we can do a preview analysis. And this preview analysis is the thing you've already accommodated yourself on the group level, on the group assessment. So it gives you the same information that you would expect from group assessment, but now it works on the merged results of the 3 assessments with the weighing that you've defined. And what you can see here is practically the same things. So the summary, categories, dimensions, heat map, but now the heat map talks about the assessments rather than the submissions under the assessments. Distribution, the same way it talks about the various assessments linked to the project. And it will give you some recommendations later. But because we are still in an active phase with all 3 assessments, we won't have the recommendations generated by AI yet. Rachi, you have a question.
So what I thought was interesting around lumping this up by different stakeholder groups was the compare and contrast you can get if you choose to do it this way, in terms of how the different stakeholder groups view however you've set up the assessment. and it's a classic consulting approach, but it's also really useful, I think, that the way in which TheAX is doing this.
I totally agree, and that's exactly why I designed my use case to present both. So present both the management versus employees, and also present the some people are interested in these categories only, some people are only interested in these categories only. Because we had one problem that we couldn't really solve up to the discovery project introduction, whereby you have 7 categories and you want to do an assessment of all 7, but there are people that has no clue about 2 or 3 of them. So they would have just guessed the answers on those ones. And now with this one, you can really specify an assessment to the target audience only, rather than asking everyone about everything within the assessment. And yeah, I'm just also showing you what Rachi just mentioned. You can switch between the views here in this analysis. So you can see the overall, but you can also switch between the management and the area. So you can, for example, see that the management has a slightly lower evaluation of the situation compared to, for example, the service guys or the governance guys. Yeah, so 47 on the governance and 36 on the service. So actually the weighing actually gets the management somewhere in the middle with the 41% that they have. All right, so we're in the analysis phase still, because our assessments are still active. So now we can do is that we can go into them and check what's going on. Okay, so I'll go to the management. You can see this go to discovery project button as a new addition. So if an assessment is linked to a project, there's an easy way to navigate. You don't need to search for it through the left-hand side navigation bar. We think that will help you actually use it better. And what I will do now with all 3 assessments is I will close them, because we don't expect any more to come. Right? So AI will start working on that. I will go back to the project and do the same on all 3 of them. Okay, management service. Close. Yep. You guys are familiar with the process behind the group assessment, so I won't explain why we need to close this and what closing means. As we can see, AI is doing some background work on them. Right. Okay. We just need to wait for 3 to be completed. There you go. All 3 are completed now. All right. So now we have 3 closed. Okay. And now, because of the 3 are closed, what we have now as a capability is to fix the baseline. Right. The baseline is practically, at this point, these are the values that are presenting your maturity. So once we fix the baseline, you won't be able to add any more assessments. You can't fix the baseline until there's at least one active assessment linked to the assessment. So once the baseline is fixed, that's practically where you say, now the project is completed, let's work on the results and let's set up the plan for going forward. But we won't work anymore on the actual assessment of the situation, the current situation. And now, because we've fixed it, now we have the open project analysis button. And the open project analysis gives you the same visibility, but now we have all the additional analysis generated. So AI will give its own view on things. And also you have Ask TheAX here to help you understand the results and compare it with model details and all this. So the usual stuff you would expect from Ask TheAX. Ask TheAX is here to help you analyze. And obviously, because I've just clicked the button, still the detailed analysis is being generated, but it will happen very soon. And then we will see all of the details, including recommendations. So you can now start working on this group of assessments as one entity, and you can start working on the results from that. Okay, and then the last step that we will, so as I mentioned, what we will do with this discovery project is that we will add a new way of generating reports out of it, because with this group assessment, with this project, it's not really a relevant method to use a pre-canned template that was created in the product book. Rather, what you will be able to do is to generate a report out from the assessment results with the help of the model, with the help of the product proposition you have. So it will be much more lively, much more closer to what you actually want to present to your clients, rather than this pre-canned version of the reporting. So that will be the one part that we will add to this. The other part will be the scoping and the project planning and other aspect of the discovery project to make it a full tool for you to be able to set a baseline and discuss with the clients what's coming. Right. So that's practically what I wanted to demonstrate for you guys. on this one about what's already in the system. The extra bit, let me just check. Okay, right. Do we have any question that needs answering, or shall I just use the remaining 5 minutes for? Yeah, okay. I'll use the remaining 5 minutes just to show you guys something. Okay, so what is currently in our test system is the portal, client portal, which I think you've heard about it, but I just wanted to show you guys how it actually works. So I have the organizations, and in the organization section, I have a chance to say, I want to create a portal for this client. And what this does is, let me just find. Yep. So this is the portal view on the same client. Okay, and let me just make it slightly smaller so that we can jump between the two views. Okay. Okay, yep. So this is the consultancy as you know it, and this is the portal view. So this client had 3 assessments, and I shared one of them through the portal. The portal is for your client. So you as a consultant, you can offer the portal to your clients so that they can actually see their assessment. They can actually run their assessment if you offer them the chance, or they can just see the results. So what I've set up for this client is that the guy I'm here with, Zoltán Tatrai, he's an admin. So what he can do is he can add other users to the portal so that more people have access to the assessments. That's been shared by the consultancy. They can jump into the assessments and see the results. Yeah, the analytics and everything else. Because I'm an admin, I can even run an assessment, so I can configure an assessment. So I can see the results of the assessment, but I can even decide to create an assessment. But the limitation is still controlled by the consultant, because what the consultant can say for each assessment template is to say that, for example, Jazz Player's Handbook is something I will offer through the portal to this guy. And if I add that template to this guy's repository, then when he wants to start a new assessment, then he has the Jazz Player's Handbook as well. So I have direct control on what this guy can do and how he can do that, but I can give him the chance to actually check the assessments, run the assessments, and even more so, which I think will be probably relevant to you, David, they can also add their own clients. So for example, if you have a regional center and they have their own partners evaluating, then you can create this client portal for a regional center. You give them the assessments that they can run for their actual partners. They can run them. They can run an assessment on themselves as well. But what they can't do is to define the product books and configure what assessments are available and all that stuff. So this way you have this kind of 2-level control on who can do what in the client portal. Right, so that's practically the next thing that's coming in a couple of weeks to the system, because what you see now is the test system. So it's practically in a really good shape. So I'm hopeful that this week or next week we will be able to release it into prod, and then we can start talking about how you can access portal if you're interested in that one.